Haha, there we go. Now you're hearing me. Good. That was awkward because it was not connected to my mic. It was connected to my voice mod, which I'm not using just for simplicity's sake. I'm not going to need voice mod. Yeah. So, at this point, I think it may be good to open up, since I am a D&D streamer, might as well go over some D&D stuff. And for that, there we go. Yes. Might as well go over the 1D&D things. So if you don't know, 1D&D is going to be the next evolution of D&D. This one right here was released in September, but I haven't gone over it on stream. So might as well. And for the most part, it's just kind of reworking player options in the player's handbook, especially the backgrounds, and also like human, elf, and stuff, and making Ardling. But I mean, yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, like I'm really liking this, because you got ways to streamline things better. You get where's Tiefling? You get changes that we've kind of needed to be made. You get more interesting options in these, and so yeah, I like that. There's also the thing I wrong way. Trying to fill the space here is weird. But yeah, I mean, any questions from chat, or no, not so far. I don't know. It's hard to do a stream like this when there is no one to show up. when there's like no one here, no one's talking in chat. It's very weird. And I don't want to just be talking nonsense into the void just to do that. I'm honestly feeling awkward here, guys. I mean, there's so many things I could talk about, but I just, it feels weird to just not have someone to bounce off of. Yeah, I guess I'll just I'll wait to see if questions come in. I mean, I guess one thing I can say is that this background song, Xenoblade, I am kind of lazy with the fact that I'm just using Xenoblade music for the background of my streams, but also it's really freaking good music, and so it's like, I want to find more variety. The problem is finding that variety, and so it's just kind of difficult because I don't know what to look for, and Xenoblade music is just forefront of my mind because it's so freaking good. Like, I love this song. This is such a peaceful song, and that's why I use the Xenoblade music for my streams, because it's good. I mean, I guess, speaking of the streams, I guess I could go into a little bit of a tangent, because, I mean, there's a component of, like, cross-promoting with myself for when I eventually get books published. That is why I stream. But then there's also a component of, I'm gonna, like, D&D is so helpful to writers, and that is my main passion, is being a writer, a storyteller. And D&D is just so helpful for that. And any TTRPG is. I will not say limit yourself to D&D because that's disingenuous. I just like fantasy and adventure and the genre that D&D brings. It's my favorite genre. It's the genre I write in, and D&D is already in that genre. And there's cool lore stuff and all that. So, yeah, that's why I kind of focus on D&D. But overall, like, any TTRPG is good. I'm friends with one person who they play a lot of other TTRPGs, and I'm like, this all sounds cool. I'd actually like to experience them, but at the same time, you get my ASD, you get my ADHD, and for the most part, I'm kind of like, I stick in my comfort zone. And so that is why I stick to D&D. Also, just because D&D has a lot of supplementary material, and a lot of it, some of it's weird, a lot of it's good. I mean, and yes, I am very biased when I say I think Fizban's Treasury of Dragons is the best supplement book they have made. Yes, because it's dragons, but also because it's very well written from a lore perspective. It's very well written from a game design, game rule perspective. It's just a very well written supplement. And if you play D&D, I cannot recommend it enough. And it's dragons, so it's like, why wouldn't you check it out? It's just a bunch of cool dragon stuff, and so it is awesome. I mean, I guess I just have no idea what to talk about because I have no one to bounce off of, not even chat. So yeah. What else? What else could I talk about? And I guess, like, since I brought it up, being an author, it's a journey, and sometimes you have to just restart your entire piece, because that's what I've done recently, where I had a book that I spent my last few years of high school writing, and then I recently realized, wow, this is not as good as I thought it was when I was a teenager writing it, and I've recently restarted. And I can also say, being an author, especially novelist, with ADHD, sucks. Because even though you like writing, it just eats up so much time that you would rather do other things. Other things that give you the instant dopamine. I once had a morning where I spent like 4 hours writing a short story, and I came out of that excited that I wrote a short story, but at the same time, like, completely emotionally weird, because that was 4 hours I spent writing and not doing other things, and it was 4 hours I couldn't spend doing other things, and so it's stressful. Yeah, it was kind of stressful. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I like writing. I like creating stories. I like having fun with just making it. And I mean, it's not that far of a thing when you like enjoying stories that you can like making stories, because it's a whole other experience, but it's also very powerful in its own way. You get to. It's a lot different making a story than it is reading a story, and I guess Hey, this kind of blends back into the TTRPG question, where you are a part of the story no matter what you try and do with it. Because you are putting part of yourself into this work. I am not a believer of the idea that every character is a part of you and like reflects onto yourself. I don't believe that fully. There is the component of there is you're taking your experiences and mapping them to the characters' perspectives, and so you obviously can't have the experience of getting acid thrown at you and falling out a window. Shout out to OSP for that example, even though that was for something completely different. But you can use other things to get across to where you're trying to go. Um, so it is, while you don't have experiences yourself, you can try your best to base it off of other things. And that isn't a problem necessarily, that is just how it goes. We can't all experience everything, but we can experience, we can use our experiences to inform how we create. And again, tying it back to JRPG, or not JRPG, TTRPG, words. Not even words, anagram, or, no, not anagrams. What the frick is the term for that? Acronyms. Acronyms, yeah, but acronyms are difficult. But going back to the TTRPG thing, is that you're basically collaboratively creating a story, and it's fun. And I, beyond what I do streaming, I am a player in an off-stream game, and like there's a point where I was looking at all that we had done, and I thought, oh hell yeah, this would make a great book, because it would. It would make a great book. And I kind of want to write that, but again, it runs into the time issues. So, ah, yeah. Guess just taking another short break to see any questions. I mean, I guess I could try to talk of the streaming side of things, but honestly, I don't get enough views to really feel like an authority on it. um, but the advice I keep hearing from people who can do the streaming professionally is just, if you want to do it as a hobby. Don't do it to get famous, because both people are gonna know that's what you're making your content for, is to try and get the views, get the money, get rich, etc., etc. And also because it's not viable, because I mean, I've been streaming for over a year at this point, and I have like 12 followers, and like one person shows up to each stream, and it can be hard to grow on this platform. So yeah. Yeah. Hmm. I mean, what else could there be to talk about? I mean, I guess at this point, might as well. Might as frickin' well. Xenoblade 3 is a masterpiece of a game. I've been waiting to talk about Xenoblade 3 on like a stream or something for so long. I might as well just open the floodgates. It is a masterpiece. From the OST to the graphics, it is legitimately, I think, the prettiest game on the Switch. You have the story, you have the characters, you have the voice acting, the writing. It is a game that is, and the gameplay too. It is a game that is so beautiful on every aspect of it. And it's you can definitely see from the way that it was designed that it is a game where Monolith Soft, the developers, took the advice from Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and they used it to just craft this near perfect masterpiece. I would say that out of the 3 Xenoblade games, that 1 is probably closer to perfect than 3 is, but 3 is, I would say, I just loved 3. I have actually beaten all 3 Xenoblade games this year. I beat. I didn't. I just, frankly, I just had to fight the final boss in 2. I didn't need to go through the entire game because, yay me, and just leaving the final boss, because that is a trend when I play these games, apparently. But I finished Xenoblade 3, all 3 Xenoblade games, and like, just holy shit, Monolith Soft knows how to make a JRPG. I mean, I have not played the other Xeno games. I've not played Xenogears or the Xenosaga trilogy, but I am a massive Xenoblade fan, and I freaking love those games. And they're, even though Tales of Berseria is my favorite game of all time, Xenoblade has got to be my favorite series. And honestly, like, I guess tying this back into more parts of this, there's, I would say, like, enjoying stories and engaging with stories and all that, and taking away from stories is, if you want to be a creator, like you want to be a DM, or you want to be an author, or just something in the creative storytelling space, just experience more stories and take inspiration from them, and take whatever you can. There's always the phrase of, it's like, there are no more original ideas, and people usually, like, you get the people who will be assholes about it. No beating around the bush there. There are the people who are complete assholes, where they're like, oh, there's no original ideas, nothing you do is original, And then there are the people who are like, oh, well, it's a good thing because of this and this and this reason. I prefer to phrase it as that ideas are cheap. Anyone can have an idea, anyone can have what at one point was an original idea. And because we are constantly building off of what exists, we're slowly running out of the possibilities of new things, new ideas, etc. And that is just how people and culture works. In fact, there's a joke where it's like, basically that, like, the entire Western tradition of literature is all based off of something else. There is nothing original anymore, and that just is. And another example is that it's like, people are no smarter now as they were 50 years ago, as they were 100 years ago, as they were in the medieval period, as they were in Rome, as they were when we in the Neolithic. None of it matters. None of like people's intelligence hasn't changed. That's not what matters with our developments. What's mattered has been working off of what has previously existed. We wouldn't have cooking if we didn't have fire. We wouldn't have things if we didn't have things before that. So yeah, it's you don't be afraid to work off of something. That was a very long-winded rant to say that don't be afraid to work off of other things. Also, thank you. Thank you, Yuna. I guess because you have 2 N's and 2 A's in your name for tuning in. Thank you. I'm just ranting to the void right now. Yay. Oh man, I guess things to talk about. Okay. I know what I have to talk about because this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. So Cyberpunk. It's cool. You gotta love the aesthetic, the neon, the cool futuristic look. I hate how nihilistic Cyberpunk is. That it's like it just is kind of like it falls into this idea of that you have what are problems in today's society, and then it just causes this, and then Cyberpunk is based on the fact that things aren't gonna get better and it's just gonna get worse, and it's like maybe, but if you are feeling like that, why don't you try your best to do something? And it's Cyberpunk just comes across as nihilistic because we get to this point where it's like it's not even an event horizon. I don't think there's ever gonna be an event horizon where we cannot fix problems that we are dealing with in our cultures today, that we're going to be dealing with in the future. I don't think that we're ever going to come across an event horizon where social issues become unfixable. And that's because, like, I'm hopeful. And so when Cyberpunk comes around and it says things are gonna be like, we're gonna have all this cool future stuff, but it's gonna be capitalist dystopia, I'm like, okay, but it doesn't have to be. This is kind of why I like Magic the Gathering's Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, because it looks like Cyberpunk, and it's got all the good parts about Cyberpunk of the aesthetic and the feel and the sci-fi, but it's not a dystopia. It's just good fun and good sci-fi fun, and I think that it's like yes, a good dystopia is good, but when an entire genre basically exists within the dystopia genre, I think that there's maybe some things to say about that secondary genre. It's all. But yeah, like I'm not trying to slam Cyberpunk and say it's a bad genre. I'm not trying to slam anyone who likes Cyberpunk. I'm just trying to say that it is a very weird genre for me. And I guess to get into more why being nihilistic is weird is that so it's the phrase like existential dread and getting existential, like that gets thrown around a lot. Existentialism is what I would say is the more positive cousin of nihilism, where you have nihilism, which looks at the universe and says the universe is uncaring and nothing has any inherent meaning. And that's where nihilism stops. Nothing has meaning. What existentialism does is it looks at those same things. It starts with the same premise. The universe doesn't care and nothing has inherent meaning. But that does not mean that we shouldn't care. That does not mean that our experience isn't right. That does not mean that we cannot put meaning onto things. And it's honestly quite beautiful to think from an existentialist point of view, because everything has potential. And as well, like, okay, we're just getting into the philosophy side of things. But this is also the kind of disclaimer of pessimism is wrong. And I'm not saying wrong as in like morally wrong and you should hit and you're bad if you're a pessimist. I'm just saying this as like factually pessimism has been proven wrong so many times. Like pessimism looks at the things that sucks, and this is like the nihilist example. Pessimism looks at the things that suck, and it says, this is always going to suck. This is not going to change. And so I don't need to put the work in to help it be better. And this is in contrast with optimism, where it says, oh, that may be bad, but it can be better. And no, yes, I will not concede that there is toxic optimism. I will not concede that sometimes it is best to completely back out of a situation. But a lot of people will, when you say like you're being pessimistic, they'll say, oh no, I'm just being a realist. That's not how that works. Because a real realist will look at the world. They will see the things that are horrible, and they will admit that they are horrible. But they will hope that things can get better, and hopefully try to make things better. And so pessimism is just factually wrong. is all I want to say. And it's that things can be made better. Things have been made better, and just so many other cases like that we cannot say that pessimism is the more grown up, the more realistic side to the world. Question from the chat: do you think pessimism is synonymous with being distrustful of people and humanity, or is it just the opposite side of the coin for naivete, cynicism? Yeah, pessimism, I would say, is very it's similar to pessimism, and I mean, it's like I'll say I am not the best at reading people, but there is definitely the kind of combo character trope of being pessimistic and cynical. And I mean, like they can both come from separate places, and characters can be cynical without being pessimistic. They can be pessimistic without being cynical. But at the end of the day, they are very similar ideas of coming at the world with this. And I guess actually, I usually have epiphanies like this where I'm talking and I realize another thing to my point is that they both are coming from this place of assuming the worst in things, and just seeing the bad and not trying to make it better. And kind of harkening back to existential versus nihilism, when you expect the worst and you don't try to make it better, then it's just going to stay bad, and you've caused a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not that pessimism is right because you didn't try to fix this thing and it stayed bad. It's that you thought it was going to stay bad, you did not try to fix it, and so of course it stayed bad because it's not going to get fixed. But yeah, I'm not trying to be like put anyone down. I am just sharing my own philosophical thoughts, my own beliefs. I try to be optimistic, but I do at the same time like back out when I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a shit show. Yeah. So yeah, basically all I'm trying to say is that like don't stop hoping, don't stop trying to make things better, because when we do, then things are just gonna stay bad. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting philosophical debate thing. Is humanity inherently good and learns to be bad, or are we inherently bad and learn to be good? I will come at this philosophical discussion with also kind of recognizing the like evolution of people and like where humans came from, where humans, like how we evolved, which then shaped how we are today in our thinking, in our world where we are. How to phrase this, but anyway, like when we consider where humans came from, we came from a very social species. We came from groups, and that is why the most kind of basic rules we have for cultures and society is do not harm the group. Do not steal, do not kill people, etc., etc. Do not harm the group. And so that's where we come from. But there's also a significant amount of every organism that is look out for yourself. And so, I mean, back to the first point, we've come from very group-oriented origins, is why we define good as doing good for others, helping the group. Since harming the group is bad, helping the group is good, which then feeds into, which then will feed into this discussion: is humanity inherently good and then we learn to be bad, or is it inherently bad and we learn to be good? It's a gray area, because we are biologically programmed both to look out for the group and to look out for ourselves. And so it all depends on which way you look at it, which way you decide to look at it. So yeah, I am not a philosophy person. I cannot weigh into this discussion. And also apologies if that veered too close to some uncomfortable topics. I was trying my best to keep it away from that, but yeah. Basically, humanity's complicated, and yeah. Oh, humanity is so freaking complicated because, and we just make it more difficult. We make it more difficult. Sometimes it is good to just take our BS at face value. Yeah, that was an interesting tangent. I can see why one of my friends thought I was a philosophy major. Oh man, what else? I think I'm gonna try to veer off of the philosophy at this point, since I am not as well versed to talk about it as some other folks are. I'm at a loss. I mean, they can go into a little mini tangent. And this is just something fun. Tarot and Oracle cards are really fun. Like, it is. This seems like a very random tangent, and yes, it is just because I looked around the room and saw my deck of tarot cards and thought that's a fun topic. But Tarot is severely misunderstood in media, and it's treated as this like, oh, this is the future, da da da. When you get into tarot, it's a lot more of like a general advice, and you can interpret the cards how they are, and that can either be like, it can be scarily accurate because it all comes out down to how you interpret the cards or what you're asking, and so your takeaway can be extremely different from just the random cards, and what someone else could take away the exact same cards for a different question. It is weirdly accurate, and I think it's because we're just of what we take away from it. Do you believe that in writing or creating, or more so in showing off, that there is such a thing as too much confidence and pride to the point where you lose a bit of humility? Or do you think that you should always take pride in what you're doing without feeling humility? There should always be humility. And this is this is because there are definitely a lot of examples of creators who do not have enough humility, and their work will frankly be varying levels of there are definitely errors here to this is just bad in general, but because they don't have humility, they are impossible to try and talk to about it, and to like to try and get critique and work on what they need to work on to tell better stories, because when you create without humility, there becomes a chance where you might not be able to grow as an author because of it, because you already think you're the best, and you think, well, I have nowhere to go but up. I think this is basically, we learn more from our failures than from our successes. And since creative work is mostly subjective, if we do not have humility, we will not see where we need to grow. If we have too much pride, we have I wouldn't say hubris, because hubris is a very particular type of pride that is not applicable in this scenario. But if we have too much pride going into our creative works, then we will not be open to taking away things we need to work on, because we will, in our eyes, it is the greatest thing ever written, and so we don't work on ourselves, we don't work on it. And this is part of why pride is bad. This is why it's on the 7 deadly sins. But I do on the flip side, I do think authors should take like every creative person should take some pride in their work. There is definitely, like, I'm not saying you need to, because there's definitely self-esteem issues present for almost every creative person, and I'm not gonna try and say those aren't real things, because they're very much real things. But we also shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, because and I mean, again, the other be learn more from our failures cuts both ways here. With, if you do fail, then it's a chance for you to learn from that experience and grow. There's a reason I started my entire novel over again, because I'm like, I can do better. And while I have pride in my characters, while I have pride in a lot of elements of the story, I am also humble enough to recognize I needed to start over. So it's always as with most things, the issue of should you be proud or humble is, the answer is kind of both. you don't want to be too much of any one thing in life, in creating, in anything. You don't want to be too much of one. So, yeah. I'm gonna just fiddle with my tarot cards. So they're interesting. I've got this because I'm original. I have a D&D themed set of tarot cards, and they're really cool. I am very predictable once you get to know me, because both ASD and ADHD, which means that when I like something, I freaking obsess over it. and when I am not super into something, I'm like, eh. So many things are D&D or dragon related with me, because freaking dragons are badass. Thoughts on D&D dice slings? They are interesting. For those who do not know, Hasbro, aka one of the biggest freaking toy companies in at least America, they are also the people behind Transformers, which is why this is kind of coming up. They are making dice slings, which is basically, it starts off as a D20 and it transforms into a classic D&D creature. The only ones we know about are the Beholders and two dragons. My thoughts on them: they are cool, but they are also like super simple to transform, and Hasbro makes Transformers, and so it's kind of like I expected more from them. What do you think is the best story in a video game? Oh man, that is a question. I have not finished the Trails of Cold Steel games, and I've only played the Trails of Cold Steel games out of the Trails games, so I cannot speak to that series, unfortunately. I'm a big Xenoblade fanatic, but my favorite game of all time is, for sure, Tales of Berseria, mostly because of Velvet Crow, because she is a fantastically well-done character, writing-wise and voice direction-wise. But if I had to say best story, I mean, I've got to go Xenoblade 3, and that's probably just because it's the most fresh in my head, where you got a small cast that all bounce off each other super well. They work with each other super well. You give each of them their really good arcs. Like every character's arc in that game is so good, even if it is super subtle. They're all so good, and you come out of that game crying multiple times. I didn't, because there is something wrong with my brain where I can't really cry at games. Although I did cry twice. I did cry twice in that game. Both in the same cutscene, because it was a long cutscene and it was very emotional. But yeah, I highly recommend Xenoblade 3. I highly recommend the Trails games. I highly recommend the other Xenoblade games. What am I talking about? I highly recommend a lot of the Tales games. I've only seen playthroughs of Vesperia and Symphonia, and then played through Berseria on my own. But it's a beloved JRPG franchise. As much as I love JRPGs, I don't play enough of them, and that is a shame. It's my favorite genre. Oh yeah, Persona 5 has also got a really good story. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend Royal, just because there's cool expanded stuff. Okay, kind of going on that, since I brought up both Berseria and Persona 5. There is actually an interesting history behind what we call the 7 Deadly Sins. And I'm going to begin to why I'm bringing this up. But the interesting thing is that this is a concept that has existed in the Western tradition since ancient Greece. I forget which philosopher exactly came up with the original idea, but it was a Greek philosopher. What's interesting is, like, it's of course evolved over time to be what we now know as the 7 Deadly Sins. What ended up happening over that time is we've had shifts. One of the original sins mentioned was the reason why I've brought this up is because it was in both Berseria and Persona 5 Royal. What this is described as, it's described as sorrow, but I think that this is a misconception, because when you look at the description, it is sorrow at another's achievement. And to me, that reads as envy. But, that being said, when a story does use despair, but a story where you have the theme of the 7 deadly sins, and when despair is used, it's a fun story because it allows you to do all sorts of fun character things. It allows you to have a more relatable villain because, I mean, spoiler alert, usually the villain associated with sorrow is the final boss. But yeah, it's just a very interesting concept. Yeah. Alright, we got a question coming in. I'm awaiting that. Oh my gosh! Oh, the Berseria reference. I mean, I can either answer this. I can answer this on multiple levels of what my answer would be if I was asked that in the game, the actual damn answer, or the best answer, which is given at the end of the game just to piss off the big bad. Okay, not with that one, because that other question that got asked is one that I am just with. But thank you for the joke questions. And if I can go into a Berseria deep dive, because holy shit, I love that game. Berseria is I would say that part of Xenoblade's strength is the small cast where each of them getting their arcs. Berseria does a similar job, but there is very obviously one central protagonist who's getting all the cool shit. Like, Velvet is very obviously the main character. Well, in Xenoblade 3, it's like Noah's the main character, but Noah and Mio are the main characters, but everyone else gets somewhat equal bidding. But Tales of Berseria, it's like basically Velvet, and then Laphicet, and then everyone else, which is a shame because everyone else are really good characters. Like, if you can, look up in Berseria the priest conversations, because they are all so good. The long story short of it is that you can talk to this priest through the game, and he's like this NPC you can talk to, and you just get these funny skits where he's like, oh, confess your sins, and everyone just has such good answers for it, and for a priest having to deal with your shit is just so good. And then the very end where he has a conversation with the comic relief sidekick character is just so good. But that's a bit of a tangent off of Tales of Berseria. Legitimately has a super good story and super good characters and a really good message. So yeah, I will say, Velvet's character design would have been much better if they just gave her like an undershirt or just something. I mean, it's a badass design, but also like just a little bit more coverage, and I think it would have been a perfect design in my opinion. And I think a lot of other people's opinions, because, yeah. I mean, not saying you can't dislike the design. I like it for what it is. I just think a tiny bit more coverage, and she would have had a perfect character design. I like the game despite that, rather than that's part of the reason. Something also interesting with Berseria, because it is a game where the story is you basically look like the bad guys. is what Tales of Berseria is. And I like one thing they did with it where 4 of the 6 protagonists all have asymmetrical clothing stuff. Except for the 2 characters who look like good guys. Yes, it is a very distant prequel to Tales of Zestria. I hear people didn't like Zestria, and then people loved Berseria, and so it's like, yeah. I actually played Berseria first, and so all of the lore, when I was starting to play through Zestria and all the lore drops were coming, I'm like, yep, I know this, yep, I know this. I honestly would feel kind of bad for people who played Zestria first, just from like a learning the lore perspective, because the fact that it's a distant prequel to Zestria, like when all that lore is dropped, is basically a plot twist in Berseria, and so I am curious to know what it's like for the people who had played Zestria first and therefore knew the lore going into it, versus like me, where my first playthrough was just I had not played Zestria first, and so I got to that plot twist where they talk about the lore, and it's like, oh. I mean, not that knowing plot twists ahead of time ruins the story. It can definitely change the experience a little bit, though. Like I got spoiled about the very end of Xenoblade 3, and so I felt like first playthrough it was a bit less impactful. Although I will say that brain that like it was still the way they executed it was really good and really heartwarming, heartbreaking, just all the emotions. But yeah, I would have preferred to have not known that. Thank you, YouTube and YouTube chat. I really wish you could just disable seeing YouTube comments because I freaking hate that. Never finished Zestria. I stopped playing Zestria because I wanted to play Stardew Valley, and then I stopped playing Stardew Valley because I realized I had more hours in it than Zestria, and I'm like, I should finish Zestria. I think I know the joke you're making about Xenoblade 3 ending at chapter 5. I think I get that joke. I was thinking similar thought at that cutscene. But no, like if you haven't finished Xenoblade 3, finish Xenoblade 3 because it is amazing. Just getting some water from my water bottle. It's half a gallon water bottle, and it is so useful. This is the second half-gallon bottle I owned this year because I took the first one with me on my commute to my school, and unfortunately, I pressed the brakes too hard, it fell off the seat and broke, and so I had to buy another one, and I was super sad. But I have this new one, and it is just as useful as the first one. I do not have a Hydrate Redeem, sadly. Yeah, I mean, we're coming up about the hour mark. That was as long as I was gonna be going. Thank you all for showing up, because it was nice having chat to bounce off of. Because it was awkward in that first 20 minutes when I didn't have anyone to bounce off of, and I was just talking into the void. But I think me just ranting about philosophy for a while kind of helped move everything forward. So yeah. What else can I say? I mean, if you're watching it on Twitch, follows always helpful. Trying to get to affiliate level, and I need who's your Berseria main? I'm gonna be honest. I played through Berseria mostly playing as Velvet. I rarely played as anyone else, and then I started my stream play, which I'm gonna be getting back to next week. It has been on a break basically since May, which That's on me being lazy. But I played as Velvet for most of my first playthrough, and so everyone else's playstyle is so weird. I mean, the casters and tails mostly sit around while you wait for the casting time to go through, but then the spell effects are fun. Like Rita in Vesperia was fun. Oh man, I don't think I did. I think I just played as Velvet. This Velvet's my girl. Love Velvet, favorite character. I mean, like, not just talk about Berseria, but like, holy shit, Christina V did a fantastic job as Velvet in Berseria. And this is, honestly, like, I was so surprised because, like, she's the Shantae VA, and most of her voice performances, she sounds like Shantae. And then she killed it as Velvet. She did better than the Japanese VA. Like, I saw a comparison, and in Japanese, Velvet's a lot more monotone. Christina V did a really good job of, like, showing different levels of anger. Oh, man. You Point Blank TV, you got me on the freaking topic of Berseria. And if you keep me on this topic, the stream is not gonna end. For the exception of, I will refuse to give spoilers because, holy shit, I love that game, and I refuse to give spoilers unless people are completely okay with it. And when I'm doing a stream, I have no way of knowing, and I don't want to give spoilers. Yes, that quote you are quoting at the freaking end of the darkest hour of the game. Anyway, I think this is where I tap out on the stream because we are coming up. We are at the hour mark. So thank you all for showing up. If you're watching this on Twitch, follows appreciated. Just because I need to self-promo. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like and all that jazz. Just because you need to self-promo and you're trying to make it on these sites. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching.